moves with you. And with our new language translation feature, our journalism becomes even more accessible. You can select your preferred language, thereby expanding reach across diverse audiences in Nigeria, Africa, and beyond. This innovation reinforces our commitment to being not just a news platform, but also a smart, accessible, and future-ready business intelligence hub. As we celebrate 25 years of impact, we step confidently into the future, powered by technology, driven by credibility, and focused on you. Visit the new Business Day website today and experience the future of news.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the July edition of the Business Day SME Clinic webinar series. I am Deborah Eze, and it's a pleasure to have you join us today. Today's webinar, it focuses on supply chain management for SMEs, and we're going to be looking at the best practice. A timely conversation, if you ask me, that will explore how small and medium-sized businesses can build efficient, resilient, and customer-focused supply chains to drive sustainable growth. And of course, I'm definitely not doing this alone. Joining us for this discussion are three distinguished industry experts. We have Morolayo Ige-Leke, he's a country marketing manager at UPS. We also have Richmond Carlos Otu as a chief supply chain officer at Jumia, Nigeria. And finally, Obina Eric Umodo is the co-founder of YSCP Nigeria. Gentlemen, thank you for being here with us today. Good afternoon. And of course, like I said, today's conversation is centered on a topic that can make or break any business. So whether you are an entrepreneur, a business owner, a startup founder, or simply interested in, having to build more resilient business operations, this session is designed to equip you with the practical strategies and actionable insights that, you can immediately apply to your business. Do we have Morolayo?
Yes, you do. Sorry, I was having a bit of a network issue just now. Sorry.
Very well.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you for taking time to be with us. All right, before we get into it, I encourage everyone to stay engaged throughout the session, and please send in your questions. We will have the opportunity to take them during the Q&A segment. Once again, welcome to the Business Day SME Clinic. All right, let's get started. I'm going to get started with you, Morolayo. Many SMEs, now let's look at the SMEs. There are many SMEs, they view supply chain management as a concern only for large corporation, if I'm correct. So why should it be a strategic priority for every small businesses from today to, from day one to actually view it as, supply chain management as a concern instead of the large corporations?
All right, thank you very much, Debbie. So supply chain management, maybe I should start by defining what it is, because a lot of people don't understand what it is. And maybe from there we can move on to why it is important. So supply chain management basically talks about how you can start from planning like everybody wants to make money. Everybody is into business to make money. Okay, sorry, you want my video. Okay, so everybody's in business to make money. Everybody wants to make something extra from what they do. They want to make some money. The world has become very globalized. What that simply means is that what you can be doing at Dire, somewhere in the back streets in Agege, Lagos, and you might have customers in Los Angeles. You can have customers in Brazil who are looking for those kind of products. So the world is now very globalized. What that simply means is that everybody is looking for where to get their next products. Everybody is looking for where to get their next cheaper, more affordable. Everybody is moving to where labor is cheaper. Everybody wants to make a profit. Everybody wants to be sustainable. So basically, somebody is looking for you somewhere as an SME. You might have something to offer the larger community in the world. So supply chain management simply is the process of sourcing these things that you need, planning them, then storing them, then transporting them. That's where I come in, because UPS is basically about moving packages from place to place. Then after it, you now deliver them to the right places. So it's a huge system whereby you find out what your customer needs, and then you now find out how to get it across to your customer in the world, because everybody is looking for different things. For example, what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz, in the Persian Gulf, is that all of a sudden people cannot move on that strait anymore because of the war going on. So they're looking for alternative routes to get oil and other facility. So supply chain management is incredibly important for everybody, not just small, not just big. In fact, you cannot grow as a company if your supply management process is not well put together. So basically, that's what it's about. So it's not just for big companies. Small SMEs that want to grow, that want to improve, even localized. For example, I'm based in Kano, but my customer base is in Lagos. I must find a way of getting my products, storing them, shipping them, and getting them properly delivered to their locations without any damage, and all these things are very costly if you don't do them properly. So I'll just stop here because there are two more details I'd like to add, but I'd like to have big numbers.
Well said. The thing that I didn't even see it as a way of even expanding, and you were able to, really explain that fact. Well said. I'm coming to you now, Richmond. Richmond, do we have you?
Sorry, Debbie, you're breaking. I don't know if it's me alone, but I can't hear you right now.
All right, Richmond, if you're there, this question is for you. So in your experience, speak to us about the biggest supply chain mistakes that prevent these SMEs from growing or scaling successfully. Richmond, do we have you?
Yes,
All right,
you have me, but you were breaking
okay.
so much I couldn't hear what you were saying. Sorry, could you repeat?
Okay. If we have Obina, please. While Richmond is.
Hello?
Okay, Richmond. Okay, we have you now, Richmond. I was
Yes, you have
asking,
me.
in your experience, speak to us about the biggest supply chain mistakes that prevent these SMEs from growing or having to scale successfully.
Okay, and thank you so much, Debbie, and my co-facilitators, right? So one of the largest challenges that exists today with supply chain management, is that people want to do it alone, right? And doing it alone comes with heavy cost. In having to own your own warehouse, in having to own your own assets for delivery, in having to own your own products, right? Supply chain is not just about, has moved from getting items from one point to one point. It involves the entire chain, it involves sourcing, it involves building relationships. Now, the way efficient supply chains work today is that they integrate, or they find partners that can take off a bit of the risk and stress, and partners that have the expertise in the section or aspect of the business that they want to outsource. So I'll give you a very clear example. So for SMEs today, one of the largest costs is having to store your items directly, right? Now, one of the models that a company like Jumia uses is that with the dropship model, you don't need to own the stock. You have the stock sitting in the market, you're putting the stock up on Jumia's storefront, and anytime you get an order, you can immediately go into the market and source the item and deliver through Jumia. That makes it easier for people to be fluid with their cash and be able to manage cash better, because without cash, of course, you cannot, as an SME, you cannot scale or grow in your business. So that is just one aspect. having to own a rider that does your delivery might not be the best operating model for SME. Today, there are 1,001 delivery companies in Lagos or scattered across Nigeria. The thing is that you need to find delivery companies that are in line with your SLA that you want to deliver. And when I mean SLA, I mean your service agreements that you align with your customers such that they can deliver. That way, you are transferring the risk. You're also transferring a lot of the headaches that come with managing the rider pool or rider community, right? So I would say, to answer your question directly, one of the largest problems is people that want to do everything themselves as an SME. As an SME, you need to look at how do you collaborate, how do you do upward integration, downward integration, how do you channel what you're not the best at and focus on what is your core as a business. And your core as a business is to scale, right? Ensuring that you have enough cash to scale your business.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Well said, Richmond. I'm going to be moving over to Obina. Obina, do we have you?
Yes, please. I didn't get your question.
Yeah, I was just introducing you. I'm here to give you my question. All right. Can you hear
You seem to
me?
be breaking a lot, Debbie.
Yeah, you seem to be breaking up.
For all of us, you seem to be breaking a lot.
Okay, what about now? Is it better now?
It's much better. Yes, you're more stable.
All right. I'm back to Obina. Can you hear me, Obina?
So same question, if I same
No, it's not the
question.
same question. I have a different question for you, and it has to be for SMEs operating with limited financial resources. Let's talk about that part. Where do you think they
You're
should
still breaking,
prioritize
Debbie. You're still breaking.
investment? Should I come again?
Yes, you're still breaking. I didn't hear your question.
All right, I think we'll go on a quick break. Let's take a breather, and when we come back, let's see if it gets better. Just stay with us.
All right.
For 25 years, Business Day has delivered credible journalism, intelligent analysis, and decision-shaping insights to Nigeria and Africa's business community. Introducing Africa's first AI-integrated website, enhanced with powerful new capabilities. At the heart of the new platform is the AI-enabled chatbot, built to help you navigate stories faster, ask questions, get summaries, and access deeper context instantly. Text-to-speech functionality, allowing you to listen to articles on the go.
The Murtala Muhammad International Airport, Lagos, has recorded an 11.8% growth in air.
Welcome back to the Business Day SME Clinic webinar series for the month of July. And of course, we're still focusing on SME chain management, and we're looking at what the best practices are for these SMEs. And before we went on that break, we were speaking to Obina. Obina, do we still have you?
Absolutely.
All right. I was saying that we're going to move to SMEs operating with limited financial resources. So what do you think they should prioritize investment in order to achieve the greatest improvement in their supply chain performance?
So I think that cash flow strains are massive challenges for SMEs in Nigeria, and of course the best possible investments may not necessarily be inflow. It might be strategic initiatives, and one very key one will be probably optimizing the tail spend So as a procurement professional, sales spend, in the last couple of years, we have realized that, sales spend exposure has, created inefficiency in many organizations up to 30 to 35% in developing countries. Now, this is because SMEs, fall for the biggest tricks, right? Looking at the 80/20 rule, for example, the sales spend, requires 80% of the transactions, all right? Involves 80% of the transaction, but it's only involved in 20% of the spend, right? And the strategic spend, for example, involves 20% of the transaction, and it's involved in 80% of the spend. Now, because of that activity, right, doing operational activity, a lot of SMEs, in all honesty, pay so much attention to detail spend, and that is a major pitfall because that, of course, reduces operational efficiency. So, looking at investments, the first thing will not necessarily be do we really need to get inflow. The first thing should come from, let's look at the intrinsic factors. Let's look at inside. First of all, have we optimized this sales spend? Have we freed up some cash? How optimized is the working capital, for example? And then, that's where, you tie that result to your business objectives. And then the question comes, do I then need money to come in? Do I then need capital injection, right? Especially for whatever projects that you want to embark on, before we have all of those conversations. So for an SME, the conversation is not necessarily about talking or speaking like a multinational in that sense, or trying to act like a multinational when in reality you're not. So, but the thing is, trying to optimize various parts of your supply chain, of course, which procurement or strategic procurement and the entire supply chain optimization needs to play a huge part.
Right. We've been able to address the supply chain as a management concern. We looked at the mistakes that some of these SMEs make and how they can actually that prevent them from growing. And Obina just analyzed the operations at which these SMEs can actually improve their supply chain. But let me come back to you, Morolayo. Let's look at what is happening in the economy, which is the rising inflation, where we have fluctuating exchange rates, and also the increasing logistics cost. All these are, their backlog that actually affect this SME. So how do you think these SMEs can build their supply chains that they become resilient and cost effective, even with all of this disadvantage?
Okay, so so there are a lot of bottlenecks for SMEs. There are a lot of challenges. I work with SMEs all the time in my company, and we've been in Richmond have brought out some things very explicit, and I will emphasize. So number one is collaboration. Number two is collaboration. Number three is collaboration. If you are small, if you are still growing, why are you taking huge loans? Why are you getting yourself highly geared? Why are you indebting yourself to such high tunes where you cannot breathe? When there are people that are ready to work with you, for example, UPS as a company, courier company, we give higher discounts to SMEs. We try to ensure that our pricing of SMEs, specifically that segment, is lower. Then we ensure that if you are well registered and you have a CAC account and you have all the requirements, we give you a 50-day credit limit, whereby you can pay back whatever you ship to us. We give you time because you need time. So that's a collaboration. Instead of you going to go and get your own buses or your own bikes and paying your own maintenance costs and all kinds of things you're going to do, horrible roads all over Nigeria, having to fly out things in very poor ways, using facility that is not very good and not very safe and not very secure, that have no insurance, and then getting yourself stuck in all kinds of models. You can collaborate with the best. You can collaborate with, as Richmond said, with Jumia, with all kinds of companies. They'll sit down with you and they'll plan out something that will reduce your spend. There are even private storage companies that you can work with that can help you to, on a subscription basis, they can help you to warehouse your packages. They can help you to store your packages if your packages are perishable. You can, so basically, the first thing you must do is look out for collaboration. Collaborate with as many companies as possible. See the opportunities instead of trying to, as Richmond emphasized so explicitly, instead of trying to do everything on your own, you need to find partners. Then while doing that, you must also, there's one or two things I want to add, and that is your suppliers. Who supply you? How many suppliers do you have? Well, if you have only one supplier, that person might disrupt your service incredibly. He might fail you and then disrupt your movement. You have to have more suppliers. You have to have people that are available at different levels that will give you cheaper but affordable and still give you the quality you need. Your SLAs must not also be joked. You must be able to give you a right SLA. So don't sit down with one supplier and say, if not for this person, I will not. No, look out for people that look out for suppliers that will give you cheaper rates, affordable rates, better service. Always be diligent enough to search, to check, to look at the use a microscope to see the contract very properly and to see what you can do, what they can do for you to reduce your costs and negotiate properly and make sure that you are abreast with what is going on, the trends, best ways, best practices. I'll give you one more illustration to what I'm saying. Imagine if I was sending food to America. Now, Americans, right now, if you're going to send food to that country, exporting food at a small SME, you must have the right documentation. You must have Food and Drugs Agency documentations. You must have the right sanitary certifications, or else they will seize it. The customs will hold it and then they might destroy it, and that's waste. So you must have suppliers too. You must have partners who are very knowledgeable, who will teach you best practice, who will tell you what to do and what next to do, tell you where not to go. For example, if you take huge packages to Spain and you take huge volume, they're going to seize it. They don't want anything commercial in that country. However, you can do such things in the UK, you can do such things in the US, you can do such. There are ways you can just go around these things and work with the available laws. So you have to have knowledge. You have to have knowledge about what you're doing. You must have knowledge, expertise about what you're doing. And the best way to do that is to collaborate with people who know what they're doing, who can work with you, who can tell you where not to go to and where to go. Thank you.
Very well said, Morilayo. I'm coming back to you, Richmond, now. Let's talk inventory management. We understand that remains a challenge for many SMEs. So speak to us about the best practices that you would recommend to avoid stock out, overstocking, and also unnecessary cash being tied up in inventory. Richmond, should I take that again?
Please confirm you can hear me.
You're muted. Okay.
Sorry. Please confirm you can hear me more.
Yeah,
Deborah.
very well.
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. For me, the business that we operate and the when we speak about SMEs, inventory in this context actually means cash, the available cash you have, right? And it's very important, like Morilayo just mentioned, I hope I got the name right, that it's important that you're able to manage your resources and also understand the laws and framework for the areas in which you work or the markets you intend to serve, right? So when we talk about inventory, it's very important that forecasting is very part of your model, right? Today, and I can tell you a very very real story or something that just happened last week. So somebody that has about 2 million naira sitting in the bank decided to use 1.5 million to rent a shop and fit the shop. And the remaining 500 was used to pay local government fees and all the other things. Now you have a shop that is looking bright and fancy, but you don't have inventory. Without inventory, you don't have a sale. And so clearly it's important that when you're looking at inventory management, you ensure that whatever runway you have in terms of cash, one, can ensure that you're forecasting and being able to plan your order. Two, you run an ABC analysis, right? Looking at what items are having a high turnover. What it means is that in the event that you're selling, give or take, you're selling perfumes and you're selling socks, you need to know what moves faster and what doesn't need to sit for long to be turned back into cash so that you can reinvest in your business. And I mentioned forecasting, right? Being able to see ahead and understand and diversifying your suppliers. I think Morulayo spoke about that. Being able to diversify your suppliers. Sitting with one supplier chokes out your business. If you have only one supplier, if you run out of stock or inventory and that supplier also runs out of stock, that affects your business, right? So in a nutshell, when you look at inventory, like I mentioned, it relates directly to the cash that you have. And that cash, of course, could mean goods sitting in with you or goods sitting with your supplier. But having the right cash to be able to access that sort of inventory is very important. One of the models that we introduce as an organization, Jumia, and I think I mentioned it earlier, that helps, right? Today we have what we call the marketplace, and we have what we have considered as Jumia Express, which is what sits in the warehouse. In that case, you've purchased the stock and the item is sitting in our warehouse, and until it is sold, then you can get your cash back. There's also the model of, if you have multiple suppliers, those multiple suppliers serve as your inventory points. So you have the item sitting on Jumia website, or you have the item on your Instagram or your TikTok, and the moment you get an order, you're able to build relationship with the vendors where you go to the market, you pick this item, you pay for it, and you ensure it's delivered, and that helps you to build up capital. Remember, as an SME, the most important lever for you is the amount of money you have and the fact that you're able to scale so that tomorrow you are no longer an SME. Right. Thank you very much.
Very well said, Richmond. You broke that down very well. Obina, over to you. We've been hearing practical examples. I would say written examples from Richmond and Morulayo, but we would like for you to share a practical example of an SME that, has significantly improved its performance through better supply chain management, and what lesson can other businesses learn from that experience?
Okay, so if I would, just off the top of my head, think of an SME, I would probably say if I would speak to a facility management company, maybe not mention the name, but I'll speak to a facility management company, and the key aspects of the improvements again were around ensuring from a very early stage, like the other speakers have said, they understood the need to plan effectively. The planning, the R&D side of things, made sense to them, and then they keep that and move that straight up to strategic sourcing. At that point in time as well, they created systems that could, help them to do effective category management. All right, and so you think if somebody is in facility management, what is he looking at? He's looking at the technical side and he's looking at the soft side. So we're going mechanical components, electrical components, plumbing components, FF&A components, and just had a robust list of suppliers or pre-qualified suppliers, I must say, that were in these categories, for example. And then after this pre-qualification exercises. They could take them up onto, RFQ positions, do RFQs or RFPs, evaluate before they award, right? And then from that, they moved to, performance management, right? These suppliers were evaluated on, quarterly basis, for example. And just like what Moralayo said, they understood that you cannot keep one supplier. You had to have a robust chain, and having a robust pool of suppliers is, in all honesty, what makes your supply chain, resilient. If the narrower, your pool is, that's when it becomes absolutely obvious that this business is going to have very huge disruptions when anything comes. So they understood that, of course, at quarterly basis, they had to manage these supplier performances, and annually also probably did some level of supplier portfolio management to understand the financial implications of that supplier, if there's technical compliance as well from the supplier's end, and just the ESG of things too. And then they had very agile inventory management strategies. For, like I said, for the soft side, they had initiatives like the first in, first out. And then for the hard side, they had initiatives like the last in, first out. Through all this, agile and potent inventory management strategies. And end to end, you would realize that the planning, forecasting, and replenishment, because of the reasonable value chain that they had begun to control, they had all of this on autopilot, basically. So it will interest you that this business has 4x'd their revenue and maybe gross profits in the last 5 years, for example. Now we have this business doing a lot of multinational sign-ups and playing in the big league, all thanks to supply chain optimization. We now have this company optimize their entire working capital. Spend under management is also in a very, very high percentile. So it was all from understanding where are we now. That's the audit phase. Where are we now? What do we want to do? What do we want to achieve in the next couple of, let's say, maybe 5 years? And then after that audit stage, you move to supply chain process standardization. And then what can I, again, back to also what Richmond said, to adopting or taking what Richmond said. This is where I am. This is my core. What do I outsource? And what do I have the internal capacity to fulfill? And then you look at all of that, and then you have your process standardization. And then the big parts, automation. A lot of SMEs will think that they don't need technology. They want to be using manual spreadsheets, Excel everywhere. And the reality is we have a lot of productivity suite software that are not necessarily full-fledged ERPs just yet, that can also be deployed and to help a lot of businesses, small and medium scale businesses, to also automate processes, because manual supply chain processes take you nowhere in 2026. This is something that I think every business needs to know. So and then from there they can now, that's where they achieve a point of optimization. So the third stage before you can say you fully optimize that chain is, like I said, you have automated a whole lot of things in your supply chain. And a couple of productivity suites that we know today. We have things like QuickBooks. We have Zoho, or even already have Zoho 1 now trying to make it a full-fledged ERP. Just a lot of, many examples of these that they can use to automate their processes. And I'll tell you, when there's good automation and process optimization, which this company has been able to do effectively in the last couple of years, there is honestly no way that such a business will not move to the next level. And as a matter of fact, continue to scale up, to play in the league of the big boys.
All right, thank you very much. That was really robust. Thank you, Obina. And before we move to the third part of this conversation, I would want us to actually focus on the supply chain disruption. Please, our audience, I will encourage you to engage, ask your questions. That's one of the important reasons why we have webinars like this, for you to ask your questions so the experts that we have in the field can answer your questions accordingly. Now, I'll go back to Moralayo now. I mentioned that I want to speak about supply chain disruption, on how it has become more frequent in the recent years. So how do you think SMEs can prepare for unexpected events such as supply failures, transportation delays, or maybe economic shocks, away from collaboration?
Okay, so supply chain disruptions. As we've mentioned it actually, and I'll repeat it again. Sorry, apart from collaboration, we still need to. You still need to have more suppliers. We've all talked about the necessity of having more than one supplier, more than one system of doing things. But I would like to also emphasize one important thing that we haven't mentioned. From a marketing perspective, I find that a lot of SMEs are doing what is known as push. They are pushing their products out there. I design a dress, and I want my customers to come and buy the dress. I spend time on advertising on e-commerce platforms. I even ship the products abroad and put them close to the customers. One way you can prevent a lot of stress is that you might have to change your push to pull. What that simply means is that you're now looking at what the customer really needs. What does the customer really want? Have I designed my products to meet customer requirements? Have I gone through the customer-centric check of whether customers have a need for my products? So that way, what happens is that when people start demanding for your products, your headaches of having to advertise, push, put them in warehouses and prepare. You don't need all that. You can now plan. Every week, this person wants 10. Every week, this other person wants 5. That way, you now have a plan. You can now say, okay, this person, you've created a pull effect whereby people are coming. You have created demand. When you create demand, you can now plan better. You can now say, okay, I'll use this way, I'll use that way, you can work with available inventory. So the risk of disruptions is lower. You have timelines, you have SLAs. Okay, I can deliver to you in the next 5 to 7 days. However, if there's any issue, so you're on a one-on-one with your customers. You're explaining things to them better. You're explaining how you deliver. Your customers can reach out to you, because inevitably there will be supply chain disruptions. Just yesterday, there was huge traffic in some parts of Benin Ore Road that delayed all movements. No one could move for at least 12 hours. Was it yesterday or day for yesterday? So that's a supply chain disruption. You can't plan for all those things. There's also the problems of airline cancellation, airline flight cancellations all over the country. They will say they will go by 8, they will not leave till 2. So these things are disruptions. But when you have created a pull effect, you can work with your customers better. You know what your customers need. You can communicate with your customers on the go. You can let them know that this is changing because of this. This is changing because of that. You have a relationship with your customers. And then you can, and most especially, you are working with experts. I'll give you another illustration to end. A particular customer of mine was trying to send a package to China, but she put Chinatown. I don't know why she did that. Now, Chinatown is a location in the US. So we shipped her package to Chinatown. She said, what have we done? I showed her this is Chinatown. You wrote here. Chinatown is in New York. So now I'm left with the option to move her packages from the US in the far west all the way to the far east. And she needed that package that's in 24 hours. So forget about coming back to Nigeria, then reconnecting with another flight going to China is not going to make it. So because of relationship that she had with me and the relationship I had with my people in America, I called the vice president of UPS. And she said, no problem. Is she ready to pay? I said, yes, she's going to pay. So they put her package on a flight for Shanghai. It didn't come back to Nigeria. They just took it straight to Shanghai. They bypassed protocol, and then in 17 hours, the package was in the right place. What that simply means is that you have to create relationships with your partners, good relationships. If not, she would have suffered a lot she would have lost that contract. And I had to do something about it. I had to change so every SME must develop relationships. You have to develop right relationships. In case there's any disruption, what can we do? I have people in my office who my sales team, very dynamic. They will stand at the bus stop because of you, just to get your package. That is being delayed, right? You need it at this time. They will go and pick it up and enter a faster mode of moving. I mean, I've seen them do things like that, just to meet their customer requirements. So build relationships with the right people, and they will make sure that even the disruptions are minimized. Thank you.
All right. We have some questions aligned. Even though some of these questions we've been able to robustly explain what it is and give a meaningful insight to it. But I'm going to give this to Richmond. Obina explained a part of this, but this person wants to know if you're advising an SME with a very limited budget, what is the first investment to make to improve supply chain? We spoke about this earlier, but I think they want more clarification on that. If you can help us with that, Richmond. Do we still have you, Richmond?
Hi.
All right.
Yes, you have me. Please confirm you can hear me.
Very well.
Okay. Very good question. I've seen the question myself, and I think it's the reason we're here, right? So I will try and take this in steps for everyone that would have this question at the back of their mind and how they can, of course, start and scale up, right? So first thing, most importantly, that most people miss when we talk about SMEs, and this probably doesn't even fall in the supply chain context, but it's very important, is accurate bookkeeping, right? Most people start off and they are unable to track where the money is going or how much they're making, if they're actually making a profit. They are so excited about their first sale or their first contract that they cannot track the money. And you realize that over time, that little investment washes away. So I would say one of the most important things you need to invest in when you start, and when I mean accurate bookkeeping, of course, you don't need to, Obina had spoken about ensuring you have the right systems, but when you're starting very small, having to buy QuickBooks or large ERPs is not the immediate way to go. Today, there are a lot of small applications or tools or even Google Sheets to start with, but you need to be able to track your cash, right? Because like I said, your cash is your inventory. Next is building supplier relationships and ensuring that you have backup for your sourcing. Building supplier relationships means going to the market, going to see the supplier, building a face, having contacts, having multiple contacts for the same product, right? And at this point, you're not even spending your budget. What I mean, you're not spending your budget. You're not spending that money you set aside for the business. All this is prior to you actually saying, I want to use this money to go into this. So you know what? Say you want to sell thrift, or say you want to start, I'll use Obina's example, you want to start a cleaning company, right? You need to know the companies that sell these cleaning products. You need to engage them. You need to build relationships. You need to build a healthy list of companies or individuals or homes that you can approach that you could be able to sell your service, right? Because as an SME, remember, you are the brain, you are the legs, you are the teeth, you are the head, you are everything about the business. You are the salesman. You are the person also keeping your image. You are the entire person. And so ensuring accurate bookkeeping, building supplier relationship. Next is very close to what Morolayo just mentioned about forecasting and ensuring that you have the right stock or being able to plan, right? And of course, logistics reliability is where the entire supply chain fuses in. You need to know the suppliers that are reliable in the market. You need to know the models that will allow you to start with no upfront commissions. You need to know the websites or avenues where you can list your products where it's going to cost you 0 penny to be able to put your products so that you at least be in front of the customer, right? Where customers can see your product, be able to create the pull effect that Morolayo spoke about, right? Creating that pull effect where you start generating demand. We've moved away from the notion of, I think people want to buy this. I think people want to buy that. I think if I take this, it's going to sell. We've moved away from that. You have access to the market. You have access to the suppliers. A lot of these large distributors and suppliers cannot come and engage one-to-one personal buyers. They want to supply. You want to be a retailer because you're an SME. You're starting out. You want to buy a bale of clothing, right? You've built the relationship with the supplier. You know what your cost is. You're recording everything you're spending. You're able to plan. You're able to have a tool that manages it, and then having reliable logistics partners that can deliver, right? And in this case, where you're starting out small, I will take it that your room is your storage center, all the supplier is your storage center. You don't need to go into warehousing. In the event that you're a medium enterprise, right? Because there's small and medium enterprise. In the event that you're a medium enterprise and you do have the opportunity to go for space, today in the logistics and supply chain space, we have shared storage. You don't need to own the warehouse. You pay for the space that you utilize. So you look for people, depending on what you're importing. Say you're importing directly from China, one container of kids' toys, right? Or whatever you're bringing, and you want to store it, and you cannot store it at home. Rather than going to rent a facility and you're responsible for all the fees, you go into shared storage and you pay for the space that you occupy. Last but not the least, that could help and important, I think Obina mentioned it, is technology, right? Using the technology that is around you. And when I mean technology, as basic as Facebook, posting on Facebook, your products that you have, posting on TikTok, posting on Instagram, posting on Jumia, posting on all platforms that today can help to push your product. And then additionally, looking how you can use AI as it exists today. People use AI for research and asking very funny questions. But of course, everybody has a level of understanding of AI. What you could do is ask AI, what are the best routes to market for my product? If I want to sell vases, if I want to sell ACs, if I want to sell chairs, you would notice that from about a month or a month and a half now, since the start of June, it's been raining heavily. What that means is that beyond the whole disruption in Hormuz that is happening, people that sell cold drinks, people that sell water, their business is on the decline, because when the weather is cold, people don't drink water as much. And that's why diversification is important. If you're selling cold drinks and you're able to study the weather and know that, okay, it's starting to rain, so people are not going to be buying cold drinks as much, moving to selling hot coffee, moving to selling drinks that are hot for people to drink, right? You need to be able to diversify, because as an SME, you need your cash to be flowing, and that would ensure that, of course, you can keep reinvesting in the business. Your first 100K or your first 200K or your first 1 million is not an invitation for you to call friends to have a treat. It's an invitation to ask yourself, how do I reinvest that 1 million or that money I've made or that 50K or 60K back into my business to be able to grow? And I think I've highlighted it, but I'll mention it quite clearly, is that today platforms like Jumia, platforms like Gigi, and other e-commerce players in the market that are localized allow you to host or put your product. They offer you a free storefront What it means that you could be in Lagos, you could be in Benin, you could be in Lagos anywhere within Lagos, and you could be selling to Sokoto, you could be selling to Maiduguri, you could be, of course, Jumia is localized, but there are other players like DHL that allow you to ship your products. There's UPS on the score, and I'm sure UPS also has a solution, right? So look at solutions that cost you 0 penny, where at that point, you are not even having to invest any of that little cash you have, into purchasing any product. You are relying on relationships, you are relying on accessibility to free tools. And then once that begins to draw in the pool that Morolayo spoke about, then you begin to spend. I cannot clearly state what product to buy because that is not my expertise. But what we can advise you on is how to ensure you have an efficient supply chain such that with the little cash you have, you can be able to scale from 0 to 1 million. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. What I like about this session is how, we are able to highlight the problems, and at the same time you're giving solution to what the problem is. And which is bringing me to the question asked, what are the challenges often faced by SMEs in the supply chain management? That is all we've been talking about throughout today. And the experts have been quite kind and generous by, highlighting these problems and also giving us solutions. So there'll be a recorded part of this webinar posted on Business Day Television. So if you have questions related to everything that was asked today, you can actually go back to the clip and get clarity to your questions. Now finally, because we're pressed with time, Obina, I would want you to give the the closing answer to all of the questions that we have, and that would be if you could give every SME owner listening to us today one advice that would transform the way they manage their supply chain. Please, what would it be?
Okay, so that advice would be trying to do a summary of everything that we've discussed today. And that would be understanding the power of integration and collaboration. Absolutely very, very key. I think every speaker on this call sort of touched on that, and we cannot, in all fairness, overemphasize that it is absolutely important. We then move to, once we understand the concept of integration of collaboration, then the relationship management comes in. Supplier relationship management, how do we keep that at a very, optimal level? Let's not, we have to talk about having the best, relationships, but keeping it optimal, ensuring that we can get value of our supplier relationships, because when, just like Morolayo has said, when there is any disruption, how can we quickly react? It is these relationship management strategies that sort of make your supply chain to be resilient, and then when there is a great, so in procurement, it's called SRM, right? And when there is a great SRM initiative in your business, so no matter how small again your business is, understanding that these key suppliers are across all of these categories are people that you need to maintain relationships with. Then when we take all of that, then we can then graduate into having what a strategic supply chain flow is. So this way we are managing risks of capacity, we're managing risks of delivery as well, and that's what most, and in all fairness, in all honesty, that's what many SMEs face today. Non-performance. Will this SME deliver? When a customer is looking at an SME, oh, I want to buy this dress from let me say Amaka's apparel. I want to buy a dress from Amaka's apparel. Will she deliver? right? There's that question. What's the capacity of this of a market apparel, right? And then when you connect all the dots, you would realize that integration and collaboration, as well as building that resilient pool of suppliers and managing the the risks, will just solve all of this problem. Now, going to the sustainability of things, how can we keep this solution sustainable? And a key part of it is what I also mentioned earlier. That would be technology. You need to automate some things. You need to track. You need to be able to see that this thing makes sense, right? Know where your money is going. Know how much is coming in. What percentage needs to go back into this? What percentage needs to go into research and product development? If you're going to diversify at any point in time, you need to have some money put aside for research and product development. You need to evolve as a business. You can't stay in one place, and you won't use 2010 strategies for 2030. So you need to be able to, ensure that there is some money kept aside for that enhancement and capacity building, if that's the word or the phrase to adopt here. And the reality continues. And then finally, I'll close with a lot of SMEs think that some initiatives are for large organizations only. I will advise here today that if you want to scale up, if you want to survive, if you want to remain sustainable, then you need to behave like what you want to be. Now, behave like what you want to be does not mean you should begin to take multinational steps, like we said earlier. No. But behave in the aspect of thinking, having a sort of just mini structure, always very key. This is how much comes in, this is how much goes into this, is how much goes into research and product development, this is what at any point in time what my margins should be, my gross margins should be between this and this to ensure that I'm safe and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
So one of the things that I can do personally is, of course, assist you at any point in time through supply chain mentorship in any way to help you actually drive and get you that what the structure should look like for your SME or for anyone starting out in procurement and supply chain management generally. So we will continue as a nation to build SMEs that offer value, and I'm sure that we would, of course, we'll come back again on this call in months or
Sure. We're definitely going to have a comeback.
Yeah, exactly. So that we can give deeper pointers, more robust pointers as to what value essentially means to SME.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Obina. It was really good to have our speakers with us. We're wrapping today's session, and I would like to sincerely appreciate all of you. And I'm speaking to our speakers, Muralayo Igeleke. I really hope I pronounced that correctly. And we also have Richmond Carlos Otu and Obina Eric Nwodo. Thank you for sharing your expertise, most importantly, your time and also your insights on the program this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And also to everyone, of course, to everyone who joined us live, thank you for your participation and for the questions. Like Obina pointed out, he said if you have more questions, it can assist you in having to get answers to the questions that you have. And we really hope that today's discussion has equipped you with ideas and strategies on how to be more efficient when it comes to your business. And of course, a big thank you to Business Day Television for putting this together. Another impactful edition, I must say, of the SME Clinic webinar by Business Day. Now, if you found this session valuable, please subscribe to the Business Day YouTube channel and follow our platform for updates on future webinars and also business insights. I am Deborah Eze. Thank you for watching, and on behalf of the entire team, do have a wonderful day.
I am, of course, a great admirer of the impeccable credibility, professionalism, and business savviness of BusinessDay. If you really mean business in Nigeria, start your day with BusinessDay.
BusinessDay is West Africa's leading provider of business intelligence and information, delivering premium content across diversified media platforms, including online, mobile, and print. Since its inception in 2001 with a weekly newspaper production, BusinessDay has expanded its reach to provide exclusive content accessible through print, mobile, and online channels. At BusinessDay, our mission is clear: to be the foremost provider of business and financial content, empowering readers to make informed decisions in Nigeria and Africa. Since our establishment, we have been committed to delivering insightful, relevant, and accurate information about Nigeria's business and finance environment, while contextualizing the impact of global events. We monitor the stock market, analyze the companies driving it, and report on government policies and their economic implications. From decoding market trends to dissecting economic shifts, we offer actionable investment ideas and serve as a compass for decision-makers navigating complexity. Beyond headlines, BusinessDay fosters discussions on critical economic issues through impactful conferences and events. These platforms bring industry leaders together to share narratives that drive innovation and spark meaningful dialogues. Our events galvanize connections, bridging the gap between inspiration and achievement. For businesses seeking visibility, our strong digital presence offers unparalleled opportunities, with millions of followers across social media and a dynamic website attracting visitors from within and outside Nigeria. BusinessDay is the ideal platform to boost visibility for your products and services. If you're looking for in-depth analysis and expert opinions on Nigeria and Africa's business landscape, BusinessDay